In my last video on this aquarium, I said this. I'm going to show you a tank that I just kind of spent 10 minutes kind of doing last night. I have absolutely no plans for this. So in the bottom is some pool filtration sand, maybe about 50 pounds of it. And then 2 big rocks here, 2 big rocks there. And this is 2 sticks of manzanita, and that's 2 sticks of manzanita, and that's it. But isn't that perfect? And look at the white wall behind it. You'll also notice that I haven't been using 3D backgrounds in all of the tanks. The next tank below it that you guys haven't seen, we're using one. But I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm really liking it. But in terms of plants for this, I'm going to cover all this manzanita with moss. That's it. White sand, 2 big crisp rocks, and all of that moss growing on it. What fish? I don't know. I'm not an aquascaper or a planted fish keeper, or a planted tank keeper, I should say. But this is kind of what I would do if I really liked the idea of the skate first and didn't know what I wanted to do with the plant. So this is a really fun tank for me to have right now because it's something I never do. When I set up a new aquarium, I always think, what fish am I going to keep? And based on that fish, what tank do they need? Do I need to build it? Can I source it? Do they need something specific? Because if I got to build it, heck, we could build big acrylic tanks and concrete tanks, glass tanks, you name it. Anything I need, I'm going to create if I have to do it. After I figure out the tank, then I think, what environment do they need? I've never gone backwards. So this is new to me. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, especially what fish I should keep in there. I'm open to the idea of a massive cloud of tetras. And I think I want to do that, but I want them to be small tetras, so maybe cardinals. But if I buy cardinals and I get 200 of them for this, I'm probably going to end up with 3. Cardinals and me just don't mix for some reason. Maybe I could do neon tetras. I don't know. I wouldn't mind it being just a boring one species tetra tank that's really pretty to look at. Immediately after, I began filling the aquarium up, but I knew I was going to have to weigh this wood down because it would float. If you see previously, there's no large rocks in behind. I strategically positioned these rocks, and I only had to use 2 large ones right there in the back to hold down 2 pieces of wood at a time. This is only 2 pieces of wood on each side and 2 rocks on each side. I also wanted those rocks easy to be able to be removed because I don't want them in there all the time. They're an eyesore and it's not part of the plan. After I conducted my water test and ensured this was going to sink, it's time to move on to the planting. We're going to be using a weeping moss. I got these plants actually from a store we toured in Ontario. They ship as well, and I got them all the way here in Nova Scotia, planted Aquaria. The brand of plant, though, is Tropica. Now, you'll remember that I've used this moss in the past, and it used to come in mats or at least more tangled weaves. It seems to me as though Tropica is looking to save money and just selling trimmings these days, which is going to make the application process far more difficult. I can't glue them on like I typically would, nor would I be able to tie them on with string because it's literally just tiny little clippings. So we'll have to get creative with glue and a paintbrush. The glue I'm using is just aquarium safe glue, super glue that I had left over from Aqua Decor. The application process is simple. Put the glue on, zigzag it like you typically would, but if I put this little filaments of moss on here, it's just going to fall off because it's not connected. It's literally just tiny little clippings, which is fine. I can get it to grow, but we're going to have to take an extra step here. The glue is going to have to be spread out. And in retrospect, I could have even used the tip of the glue applicator to just kind of spread it out, but a paintbrush, a really cheap one, nylon, just spread it out really nicely, kind of wet the wood evenly. Now I'm going to take this moss and sort of just dab it on, holding the moss loosely. I will be dropping quite a bit of it here, but we're just dabbing it on. Now you can see how difficult it is and the process that I had to come up with to get this to work. I'm definitely disappointed in the quality of a lot of aquarium products these days. It definitely seems like it's quantity over quality, bottom dollar type of situations. And it's been really frustrating because we're living in a time where things aren't necessarily as affordable as they once were. The aquarium hobby has become far more of a luxurious type of situation to be in, and it's just really disappointing to see, instead of getting the plants that you typically are used to paying for, come as just literal clippings. And it's no fault to a store. It would be no different than me buying a Fluval filter from a store and blaming the store that I don't like the filter or the quality of it. when historically they've always been great. However, I think that I'm a little less upset about this now, that I've gotten to experience a new way that I've never done this before, kind of experimenting and discovering different ways to solve issues within a planted tank. And I even thought about blending this up with some yogurt and painting it on that way, doing the dry start method. But then I thought, well, with my luck, it's all going to rot and I'm going to have fruit flies all throughout the aquarium gallery. And I thought this is probably and likely going to be the best way. I'm not sure if something like this has been done before, where you kind of like paint the glue on and then dab the moss on, but it's definitely a really interesting method and way to do it. And I'm technically happy that I got a lower quality product that I was typically used to, in order to discover a different method of application. I gotta say, like, if I grew this moss out and then I just took a pair of scissors and literally just trimmed it and gave it a haircut, and whatever floated to the surface, packed that up and sold it to you for $14.99, yeah, you'd be pretty upset too. You would want what's on the wood. You would want me to rip those mats off and give you some really good healthy chunks to give you a chance at growing this. But alas, we'll see what happens. Luckily, I had lots of glue left over, and what I did find with the paintbrush, though, is the slower I went, the glue started to harden on the paintbrush, but it still did its job. I don't know if there's another material that I could use to brush it on, and to get in all the crevices and, not be so wasteful with the glue, especially since I had so much to cover. But if you have another idea outside of tying little snippings of moss onto the wood, which is relatively impossible, we've done that before where we use sewing thread and we kind of tie it on, but that's if you're dealing with actual strands of moss. The goal here, though, was not to cover the entire pieces of the wood. I want some of the wood to be exposed. And strategically, what you want to do is kind of make it look like the moss is in all the dips and or all of the raised areas, like the humps, but you don't want to double down on everything. You want to leave gaps, and you also want to leave the tips of the wood exposed. Now, I'm using 5 cups of this, and the more and more I used, I realized I probably didn't need this much, and when I did fill the tank up, a bunch came off, about a cup's worth, so I probably could have got this end result with 4 cups. But for a 4-foot long aquarium, only 4 cups of moss, 4 sticks, I think this is a great idea, and a fantastic scape for somebody that does want to plant a tank, that does want to see what it's going to look like over time and truly enjoy it, because planted moss tanks and or moss only tanks are some of my favorite, especially with them being so simplistic and simple looking. So now you can see the idea and the strategy that I have, where I'm kind of only putting the moss on the most visual pieces of the wood, meaning that as we look at this, you can kind of imagine where you want your moss to be and what it's going to look like long term. Now, this moss is going to fill out, and based on its name, weeping moss, it's going to droop over. It doesn't grow straight up. It kind of like droops over as if almost melting off the wood. It looks absolutely fantastic. Heck, you might even remember the 375-gallon aquarium that we did with just moss. Remember the rainbow fish tank? Beautiful aquarium and one of my favorites. It's difficult to move on from those types of scapes, especially when you do them once. It's kind of addicting and you want to do it again and again and again. And I haven't really had a really proper moss tank in a while, besides what we've done with Tamara, my wife's aquariums. We've done a few moss tanks that way. But with this one, I wanted another moss tank, and I just don't know what fish I wanted to add. And that's going to be the problem here, is I think that I'm going to go with a large school of something. Nothing that gets too big. Relatively small. Let me know what you think in the comment section below by just looking at this tank. What is this tank screaming for in terms of fish? I'm also thinking I should do species only, meaning just one type of fish and one type of plant. Keep it incredibly simple, but beautiful. The reason being is some people like to replicate the scapes and tanks that I make, and because I make them so simple and easy to do, you really can do this. Imagine just finding 4 rocks outside and 4 sticks. You put some glue on them, paint your glue on them, take your little trimmings of moss like I got, and dab them on, and you could have something like this. I just wish my wood was already sinking, because it did previously, but Manzanita does float eventually if it dries out. It just goes right back to floating. It's not like Malaysian bogwood where it's always able to sink. I know some of you might also say this tank needs more plants or add something else to it, more rocks or more this or more that, but I think less is more in this situation. I think it's bright, I think it's vibrant, I think it's bold, I think it's really, really nice, and of course, simple. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think of this scape? Am I right in saying that a lot of not just plants, but sometimes fish, it seems like everything is going down in quality over the past few years? And I guess, you know, companies got to survive, but we also need to have a fighting chance at our fish tanks with quality stuff. I'm definitely going to keep using Planted Aquaria because historically they've always got the best selection of plants, shrimp, and fish, aquascaping supplies. Like, it's a one-stop planted tank store, if you ask me. And this one order of plants isn't a reflection of them. It's not even their brand. They sell it. Tropica's been a respected and well-known brand for a very long time, but I will say that I will no longer be buying their moss clippings anymore. So let's take a look at the tank now that it's filled. So this is going to be shockingly different from what we seen just a moment ago. You have to remember the tank is now filled with millions of oxygen bubbles. All those bubbles all over the tank, as well as the wood, is caused by adding highly oxygenated water, which simply comes from my well, or I should say my aquifer. As we take a closer look, you can see that it's air bubbles everywhere. It's not really glue or anything like that, but if I try to remove these air bubbles directly from the moss, I'm going to start removing the moss as well, because it's still pretty delicate. Within a couple of weeks, it'll really hold on and really start to grow out. I'm definitely thinking about not only dosing this tank, but also adding CO2. Let me know your thoughts on this entire tank in the comments section below. Hope you guys enjoyed this tank and this video. If you did, subscribe if you're not already. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one.